We should get a divorce, Charlotte said, her voice quiet. Leo Anderson looked down at the woman in his arms, the woman he had loved for 3 years. In the end, he couldn't find the words to make her stay. Okay. But 2 months after the divorce, Charlotte woke up one morning to a wave of nausea. A trip to the doctor confirmed it. She was pregnant. The sound of the rain outside had faded, leaving only the low hum of the air conditioner in the bedroom. Leo lay on his side, his chin subconsciously nuzzling the woman nestled against him. 20 minutes earlier, they had fulfilled the most intimate of marital duties just as they had on their designated day, every week for the past 3 years. Charlotte placed her hand over his, where it rested on her waist. We should get a divorce, she said again, the words dropping into the stillness. Leo's body went rigid for a second before relaxing as if all the strength had drained out of him. Okay. Her mind drifted back 3 years. Charlotte had just been appointed the CEO of the Shin Group, a move her grandfather had forced through against a tidal wave of opposition from the rest of the family. The other senior members of the board, her uncles and older cousins, were furious. A woman, they argued, had no business running the company. They decided the best way to oust her was to arrange a marriage. Once she was married, her position would be untenable. Her priorities would shift. They'd whisper in the boardroom. She'd be distracted. That's when Charlotte went to Leo Anderson, her high school classmate and friend of many years. She proposed a flash wedding, a modern arrangement where he would support her career. In the years they were married, Charlotte solidified her power. But she never told Leo the real reason she had married him. He thought she genuinely loved him. Don't you want to ask why? Charlotte asked now, her voice soft. No point, Leo replied. You've already said the word. Asking why won't change the fact that you want a divorce. Charlotte traced the faint red mark he'd left on her collarbone, her expression unreadable. I'll make sure you get a generous settlement. He held her a little tighter for a moment, then let his arms go slack. You don't have to do that. But her tone was firm. It's fine. Consider it compensation for the last 3 years. Leo was silent for a long time. Finally he gave in. All right. The next day, the sun was brilliant, evaporating every trace of the previous night's rain, leaving not even a hint of dampness in the air. They walked into the county courthouse, one after the other, and approached the clerk's window for divorce filings. The clerk asked the perfunctory question without looking up. Are you both sure you want to do this? They nodded in unison, then spoke at the same time. We're sure. The clerk finally raised her head, a flicker of something, pity maybe, or irony in her eyes as she looked at the strangely synchronized couple. After a brief pause, she stamped the papers with a dull thud, walking out of the courthouse doors. Charlotte stopped. Well, I guess I'll get going. Leo nodded, his voice barely a whisper. Okay. Without another word, Charlotte turned and walked away, not once looking back. Leo stood rooted to the spot, watching her figure shrink in the distance. He opened his mouth as if to say something, but no words came out. He turned and walked in the opposite direction. Charlotte's steps gradually slowed. She stopped and looked back toward the courthouse, but all she saw was Leo's retreating back. Neither of them had tried to stop the other. They had missed their last chance to even meet each other's gaze, and with it, every possibility they might have had. 5 years later, the door to Charlotte's office swung open, and a little girl with braided pigtails ran in. Charlotte looked up from her computer, her expression softening instantly. She scooped the girl up and settled her on her lap, planting a kiss on her cheek. Was Leona a good girl at preschool today? I was the best. My teacher even gave me a gold star. Well then how about mommy takes you on a trip when you have a break from school? Charlotte said, adjusting her daughter's crooked butterfly hairclip. Yay, Leona cheered. Can we go to beach? My friend Maya went to the beach and she found a bunch of seashells. Charlotte poked her little cheek. Of course. We can go wherever you want. The 4th of July sun beat down on Miami, bright and hot. Charlotte held her daughter's hand as they were about to head toward the sand when a familiar figure walked toward them from the opposite direction. Charlotte's grip on Leona's hand tightened. The man looked up and saw her. Charlotte, the familiar voice made her freeze. Leo stood in front of her, and next to him was a woman with a swollen, pregnant belly. He looked more mature than he had 5 years ago, a new layer of quiet confidence in his eyes. What a coincidence, Charlotte said, her gaze involuntarily drifting to the pregnant woman beside him. Leo seemed just as surprised. Yeah, it is. He then noticed the small child at Charlotte's side. Is this your daughter? Oh yes, she is. My daughter, Charlotte said, looking down to smooth Leona's hair. How old is she? Leo asked, his eyes lingering on Leona's face. She's 3, Charlotte said, feeling a sudden unease. A pang of hurt shot through her as she looked at the woman by his side. She just wanted this conversation to be over. I have to go. We have something to get to. Leo nodded. Okay. Charlotte quickly led her daughter away, not stopping until Leo's figure had completely disappeared from view. Leona looked up at her, her little face scrunched in a pout. Mommy, Charlotte knelt, her heart aching as she squeezed her daughter's cheek. The girl looked so much like him. I'm sorry, sweetie. Mommy got it wrong. Leo watched Charlotte's retreating back. In 5 years, This was the first time they had seen each other, and it was over in a flash. He stared after her for a long time, a sense of loss washing over him. Was that your ex-wife? Jessica, the woman beside him, asked softly. Leo snapped back to the present. Yeah, that was her. And the little girl? Jessica pressed. The sea breeze seemed to pick up, tangling Leo's hair but doing nothing to clear the turmoil in his mind. He thought of the child, of the unmistakable resemblance in her features. He couldn't be sure. Probably not mine. We've been divorced for 5 years. Jessica nodded thoughtfully and didn't ask any more questions. Later, after Leo dropped her off at her apartment building, she turned to him. I'm home. Thanks so much for your help with my husband's thing. I can't believe you came all this way. Leo waved it off. It's no trouble at all. Don't worry about it. Jessica's husband had been in a car accident 3 days prior. He was lucky to be alive and was now recovering in the hospital with a cast, but his car was totaled. The insurance company was trying every trick in the book to avoid paying out with nowhere else to turn. Jessica had called Leo, who knew his way around these things. After dropping her off, Leo returned to his hotel. He couldn't shake the image of Charlotte and the little girl from his mind. He stood at the window, looking out at the beach below. It was crowded with people. He had no idea if Charlotte was one of them. Probably not, he murmured to himself. The week-long vacation passed quickly. At Miami International Airport, Charlotte handed her daughter a boarding pass. Here you go, sweetie. Hold on to this and don't lose it. The little girl took it with a solemn expression, as if accepting a great responsibility. Mommy, can we come back again? Charlotte knelt to tidy her daughter's slightly messy hair. Of course we can, but we have to wait for the next school break. Okay. As Charlotte stood up, she noticed a familiar back in a line of people queuing. Up ahead, Leo was looking down at his phone. The woman wasn't with him. Just then, as if sensing her gaze, Leo put his phone away and looked up. Their eyes met, and for a second the air seemed to freeze. Fancy seeing you here, Charlotte said, finding herself walking toward him with her daughter in tow. Leo nodded, his eyes falling to the little girl. Yeah, you too. Are you on this flight? We are, Charlotte said, nervously twisting the strap of her purse. So, is your ... She started, her voice trailing off nervously. What is it? Your wife, isn't she with you? Charlotte asked. Leo looked confused. Since when did I have a wife, huh? The woman I saw you with at the beach, isn't she your wife? Charlotte felt equally confused by his reaction. No, Leo said, shaking his head. She's a friend. I came down here to help her out with something. An awkward silence stretched between them. Charlotte could feel her cheeks getting hot. Oh, I just assumed. Leo smiled. It's okay. Charlotte just wanted to find a hole to crawl into. Well, we're in business class. I should probably get going. Okay, bye. The business class seat was spacious and comfortable, and her daughter quickly fell asleep in her arms. Charlotte's mind drifted back to 6 years ago, the year before she'd asked for the divorce. Her 2 uncles on the board had been caught in a series of violations and shady dealings. After she exposed them, they went to her grandfather, furious, spouting nonsense about how a woman shouldn't be running a company, how she'd been married for years and hadn't even produced an heir. She had shot down every one of their arguments. But later her grandfather had gently asked her when she was planning on having a child. She just said she wasn't ready. In truth, she had never planned on having children at all. She still hadn't sorted out her feelings for Leo, and she had married him with the full intention of divorcing him once her position was secure. But her grandfather's question had shaken her. Was Leo good to her? Of course he was. In their years of marriage, he had been a true husband in every sense of the word. But a knot of guilt always sat in Charlotte's stomach. She had only married him to shut the board up. She tried to accept his love, to be a real wife, but she couldn't. She never fully saw him as her husband. After that conversation with her grandfather, she had told herself to stop thinking about the reason for their marriage, to act like a normal wife. She even told Leo she wanted a baby, but the more she tried not to think about it, the more she did. On top of that, nothing happened. They tried for nearly a year, but she never got pregnant. The tangle of emotions became too much. He chose divorce. And then, 2 months later, that morning, sickness, a visit to the hospital, and the terrible confirmation. She hated that this child couldn't have come sooner, hated that she couldn't have held on just a little longer, but they were already divorced, and she had no intention of telling Leo she was pregnant. Seeing him on the beach with that woman, her heart had felt like it was being pierced with 1,000 needles. She had lied about their daughter's age, on purpose to avoid disrupting his life. But her life, it seemed, was a tapestry of misunderstandings and mischances. She hadn't expected the woman not to be his wife, but the words were already out, and Charlotte had no idea how to take them back. After the plane landed, the business class passengers disembarked first. Charlotte carried her half-asleep daughter through the jet bridge. Outside the airport, her driver Maria was already waiting. Charlotte settled the child into the car. Just as the car pulled away from the curb, she saw Leo through the window walking out of the terminal with a suitcase. The sun outlined his strong silhouette, so familiar and yet so distant. "Mummy, what are you looking at?" her daughter mumbled, rubbing her eyes. Charlotte pulled her gaze away and soothed her. Nothing. Sweetie, go back to sleep. We're almost home. The car emerged into traffic, and the figure in the rearview mirror grew smaller and smaller until it was just a black dot, and then it was gone. One afternoon, just before Charlotte was about to leave work, her assistant sent over her schedule. There was a business dinner with partners from several other companies. At 7 o'clock sharp. Charlotte arrived at the hotel and was led by the hostess to a private room. As she opened the door, several partners stood up to greet her. Charlotte, good to see you. After exchanging a few pleasantries, Charlotte froze. Leo was sitting among them. What a coincidence. What are you doing here? She said. The other partners exchanged confused glances. Mr. Davis, the CEO of Longview Capital, broke the silence with a laugh. What's this, Charlotte? You two know each other? Charlotte's fingers fidgeted. She didn't know how to respond. They didn't just know each other. They had shared a bed, a bathroom, a life. They even shared a child, though Leo didn't know that. But she couldn't say any of that. That would only make everything more awkward. We were high school classmates, Leo said smoothly. Charlotte snapped out of her daze and quickly followed his lead. That's right, we went to high school together. Well, what do you know? Mr. Wang from Apex Group clapped his hands. High school friends have to catch up. Come, Charlotte, sit here. She ended up seated 2 people away from Leo, a perfect distance to see him without needing to talk to him directly. As dinner went on, Charlotte picked up bits about Leo's life. After their divorce, he'd gone abroad for his MBA and was now the CFO at Longview Capital. She remembered how he'd majored in accounting back in college and had been studying for the GM8 when they got married, back when she'd just taken over the company. It was Leo who had helped her sort through the tangled books amid the clinking of glasses and polite laughter. Charlotte mechanically raised her glass, smiled, and nodded. She barely exchanged a word with Leo. As the dinner wound down, she realized she'd had a bit too much to drink. She was unsteady on her feet. Through a foggy haze, she thought she heard Leo say, "I'll take you home," and she heard herself say, "Okay." Leo helped her into the elevator. Charlotte clung to his arm, trying to stay balanced. In the tight space, the scent of wine and her perfume mingled into something dizzyingly sweet. Her cheeks were flushed, her mind cloudy. She looked at his familiar face and leaned in. "Honey, what are you doing here?" she murmured. Leo's body visibly stiffened, but he didn't correct her. The elevator numbers ticked downward. Charlotte felt herself sinking, falling into a warm, familiar embrace. "Honey, I've missed you so much," she whispered. Alcohol had fogged her mind. Her forehead came to rest on his shoulder as she slowly drifted off to sleep. When the elevator doors opened, Leo scooped her up in his arms. Her driver, Maria, had been waiting by the car and hurried to open the back door. Leo gently placed Charlotte in the back seat and fastened her seatbelt, but as he tried to pull away, her body slumped sideways again. After a few failed attempts to prop her up, he had no choice but to slide into the back seat beside her, holding her steady. Maria glanced at them through the rearview mirror but didn't say a word. She had been the Shun family's driver for years. She had known him as Mr. Anderson. She had seen him become Leo again when they arrived at the apartment building. Leo told Maria she could go home. He'd take it from there. She nodded and left. Leo carried Charlotte into the elevator and up to the familiar apartment door. He saw the same keypad lock they used to have and paused. Then, on impulse, he typed in the old code, 072416, their wedding anniversary. Lock disengaged. Leo stood frozen in the doorway. He couldn't believe she'd never changed the code. The living room looked nearly the same as it had 5 years ago, just minus his things. But there was a child's room now. He carried her into the bedroom, his eyes scanning the apartment. There were no signs of another man. He gently laid her on the bed, slipped off her heels, and grabbed a few bottles from the vanity to clean off her makeup. When he was done, he tucked her in and left. As the elevator descended, Leo's thoughts were a mess. He didn't know if Charlotte had moved on, if there had been other men, but he couldn't stop thinking about that little girl in Miami. The resemblance was too strong. He didn't know if Charlotte had lied to him, or if it was just a coincidence. The next morning, Charlotte's alarm jolted her awake. She slapped it off and sat up, her head pounding. UGHH. She looked around the familiar room, trying to remember how she'd gotten home. She stumbled into the bathroom, rubbing the sleep from her eyes. Her reflection looked clean. Her makeup was gone, her hair surprisingly neat. She splashed cold water on her face. Then, bit by bit, memories returned: the dinner, the wine, Leo, the elevator. The warmth. Her hand froze midair. Her head snapped up, water dripping from her chin. She remembered what she'd said in the elevator. She'd called him honey. She buried her face in her hands. She couldn't believe it. Running back to her bedroom, she grabbed her phone and called. "Maria, hello Miss Shun, is everything all right?" "How did I get home last night?" Charlotte asked quickly. There was a pause. "Mr. Anderson brought you home. He took you upstairs himself." Charlotte's stomach dropped. "Which Mr. Anderson?" she asked, voice tight. "Mr. Leo Anderson." Her body went rigid. She'd suspected as much, but hearing it confirmed still made her heart skip. After hanging up, she sat in silence on the edge of the bed, the fragmented scenes of the night before playing back like film. Leo carrying her, cleaning her face, tucking her in. Her cheeks flamed. She grabbed a pillow, pressed it to her face, and let out a muffled scream. Meanwhile, Leo walked down the hallway of a DNA testing center, a clear plastic bag in hand. Inside, 2 strands of hair he'd found on the child's pillow at Charlotte's apartment. He felt like a thief, but that little girl's face, it wouldn't leave his mind. He handed the bag and his own DNA sample to the nurse and filled out the form. How long for the results? He asked. About 3 days, she replied. Leo nodded. 3 days didn't feel long. Compared to 5 years, it was nothing. As he stepped outside, the sunlight made him squint. 5 years hadn't been enough to forget Charlotte. If anything, his feelings had only grown. He'd agreed to her proposal because he loved her, and he'd agreed to the divorce for the same reason he loved her enough to respect her wishes. That afternoon, Maria picked Leona up from preschool, after she finished her homework at Charlotte's office. It was time to head home. In the car, Leona suddenly asked, "Mommy, do I have a daddy?" The question hit Charlotte like a jolt. She'd never mentioned Leo not once, but she knew this day would come. "Of course you have a daddy, sweetie," she replied gently. "Then where'd he go?" Charlotte hesitated, then gave the answer so many single mothers do. "Daddy's working in another country." "When is he coming back?" "When you get a little bigger," Charlotte said. "He'll come back." Leona looked like she wanted to ask more, so Charlotte quickly changed the subject. "How about Mummy takes you to the amusement park this weekend?" Leona's eyes lit up. Yay. That night, Leona fell asleep draped over Charlotte's shoulder. As Charlotte reached the apartment door to enter the passcode, her hand froze. The code was still their wedding anniversary. That meant Leo had probably realized there was no other man. And maybe, just maybe, he'd figured out something more. Could he suspect a baby is his? She whispered to herself. She didn't dare think further. The next morning, Charlotte was helping Leona into a little dress. She'd barely slept, thoughts of Leo keeping her up all night. "Mommy, you buttoned it wrong," Leona pointed out. Charlotte blinked. Sure enough, the buttons were crooked. She redid them quickly. "What's wrong, Mummy?" Charlotte forced a smile. "Nothing, baby. Mummy's just a little tired." After getting ready, Maria drove them to preschool and then would take Charlotte to the office at the preschool gate. Leona hopped out. "Be a good girl for your teachers, okay?" Charlotte kissed her forehead. "Okay." She waved and ran to a teacher that afternoon during playtime. A few kids were talking about their dads. "My dad's an engineer," one boy bragged. "He builds skyscrapers." "My dad's a doctor," a little girl chimed in. When it was Leona's turn, she said softly, "My daddy works in another country." The chubby boy sneered. "You're lying. You don't have a dad." "I do," Leona insisted. "My mummy told me." "Your mummy's a liar." "No, she's not." The argument escalated. They started pushing each other until a teacher rushed over to separate them. Charlotte had just wrapped up a meeting when her phone rang. She saw it was the preschool and answered immediately. "Mrs. Shen, hello." Leona had a little altercation with another student. "Could you come to the school?" Charlotte's expression hardened. "Yes, of course. I'm on my way." 20 minutes later, Maria pulled up to the preschool. Charlotte rushed inside and was led to the principal's office. The boy's parents were already there, heated and loud. "This child has no manners," the boy's mother said, voice shrill. "How could she hit our precious boy?" The boy, now sporting a scraped cheek and split lip thanks to a building block hid behind them. His father was demanding Leona's expulsion and payment for damages. The principal looked helpless. "Rest assured, our school will handle this to your satisfaction." Just then, Charlotte walked in. The principal sighed in relief. The moment Leona saw her, she burst into tears and ran into her arms. "Mommy," she sobbed. "I don't have a daddy." Charlotte's heart cracked. She hugged her daughter close. "It's okay, sweetie. Don't cry. Mummy's here." The chubby boy muttered from behind his parents. "Well, she doesn't." Everyone heard it. Charlotte shot him a cold glare, and the boy flinched. After calming Leona down, Charlotte stood up and looked at the parents. The woman was draped in mismatched designer brands. The man had a potbelly stretching his belt. He met Charlotte's gaze and felt a chill. Something about her felt familiar. "So you're the mother of this ill-mannered brat?" the woman snapped. Charlotte didn't respond. She studied the man thoughtfully. The woman took her silence as fear and sneered. "What do you expect from a kid with no father?" Charlotte's eyes narrowed slightly. "You work for Titan Construction, don't you?" she asked the man. His dread spiked. "Yes," the woman cut in. "My husband is a senior project manager at Titan, a licensed structural engineer," the mother boasted proudly. A name floated up in Charlotte's memory. "Your name is Thompson, isn't it?" "Bill Thompson." Bill Thompson's eyes widened in recognition. Suddenly he remembered who the mother of this little girl was. Seeing the recognition on Charlotte's face, his wife swelled with even more pride. "That's right, so you'd better smack." Bill slapped his wife across the face, cutting her off mid-sentence. She stared at him in stunned silence, sinking to the floor. "What are you doing?" she demanded, completely bewildered. Bill ignored her and turned to his son. "Get on your knees." The boy, terrified, dropped to his knees without hesitation. His mother, still reeling from the slap, saw him kneeling and started to another slap. "Shut your mouth." She was completely dumbfounded. She had no idea what was happening. Bill immediately turned back to Charlotte and bowed deeply. I am so sorry, Miss Shun. This was my son's fault. Please, you have a big heart. Don't hold it against them. They don't know any better. We'll cover any costs. Charlotte didn't respond. Her natural presence alone filled the room with authority. She turned to the principal, who had been standing silently by the door. This is supposed to be one of the best preschools in the city. I trust something like this will not happen again. The principal glanced nervously at the Thompsons and swallowed. Of course, Miss Shun, you have my word. It will never happen again. After leaving the preschool, Charlotte got into the car. Maria used my phone. Make a call to OSHA. The fire department, she said, then paused. And the IRS. You know what to say, Maria nodded. Yes, Ms. Shun. In the back seat, Leona clung to her mother's neck. Mummy, can Daddy come home soon? Charlotte felt a wave of pain crash through her. Leona missed her father. Aha, Leona nodded, her voice thick with tears. All the other kids have daddies. Charlotte gently patted her daughter's back, unsure of how to respond. They were divorced. Asking him to come back, even for their child's sake, felt too much like using her to tie him down. When she'd first gotten pregnant, her parents had urged her to tell Leo he was the father he had a right to know, even if she didn't want him involved, but she'd refused. She couldn't bring herself to do it. She couldn't use a child to hold on to him. And now, 5 years later, with Leona already so grown, and Leo living a completely separate life, it just felt impossible. All she could do was hold her heartbroken daughter and whisper, Daddy's very busy with work. When Leona gets a little bigger, he'll come home. I want him to come home now, Leona said. Charlotte gently stroked her back. Then Leona has to grow up fast. Daddy will be back very soon. 3 days passed in a blur. Leo stood outside the DNA lab, holding the report tightly in his hand. Probability of paternity, 99.999%. His face twisted through emotions: joy, anger, disbelief, before settling into an eerie calm. The afternoon sun was hidden behind the building, casting a long shadow. Standing in it, Leo pulled out his phone and dialed a number that had sat dormant in his contacts for 5 years. At the same time, Charlotte was reviewing a document when her phone lit up. Seeing the name on the screen, her breath hitched, her stomach dropped. She just knew something was about to happen. After several rings, she finally picked up. Hello, it's me. His voice sounded the same, familiar, but there was something new in it, a quiet strength. What is it? She asked. Meet me at the coffee shop on Bayside Drive. Her heart pounded in her chest. Can't you just tell me over the phone? A sense of dread washed over her. He knew he had to know about the child. Fine, she said. She hung up quickly, delegated her remaining work, and grabbed her keys. 15 minutes later, she pushed open the glass door of the coffee shop. He was already there, sitting in a corner booth. She walked over slowly and sat across from him, hands trembling in her lap. What did you want to see me about? Leo didn't answer right away. Instead, he asked, how old is the child? The tension Charlotte had been barely holding on to finally snapped. He didn't know. She tried to calm herself, for she said, why, she's mine, isn't she? Yes, then why didn't you tell me? Now that the truth was out, Charlotte didn't bother holding back anymore. And what if I had? Would you have taken responsibility? Leo stared at her, incredulous. Of course I would have. She's my child. How could I not? Charlotte let out a bitter laugh. After 3 years of marriage, she knew he meant it, but it wasn't what she wanted to hear anymore. We're divorced. You don't need to be responsible for her. That's not the point, Leo said firmly. The divorce is one thing. The child is another. She was born after we divorced, but she's still my daughter. She's my daughter now, Charlotte said. You don't need to be involved. Leo's voice rose, frustration spilling out. Did you even ask her what she wants? In all their time together, Leo had never raised his voice at her, not once. But now, he was furious. Not just at the situation, but at her complete lack of trust. Charlotte flinched but quickly collected herself. He had a point. She'd been so focused on not wanting to burden him that she never stopped to consider what her daughter might need. But pride still held firm. My daughter listens to me, she said. Leo's anger faded. He looked at her for a long moment, then took a deep breath and turned to the window. Are you just using our daughter to get back at me? Charlotte blinked. Get back at him. She loved him more than anyone. She had named their daughter Leona. It was pride that made her push him away. Her pride, her guilt. I think I was a good husband to you for those 3 years, Leo said, voice low. When you slept in, I got everything ready before waking you. When your back ached, I gave you a massage. I had my own job, my own career. But I still took care of you. He looked at her now, eyes unwavering. Do you remember when we first got married? You worked day and night. You barely ate. You got so sick. I took you to every doctor I could, Western, alternative, everything. There's more, but I won't list it all. He leaned in, voice quiet. I'm asking you one thing, Charlotte, just one thing. Do you hate me that much? That you'd use our daughter as a weapon against me? Charlotte's lips trembled. No, that's not it. I never wanted to hurt you. Then why didn't you tell me? Why are you fighting me now when all I want is to meet my daughter? She had no words. She didn't know how to explain her warped reasoning, how she thought she was protecting him, protecting them both. Their marriage had started with a lie. She thought divorce would wipe the slate clean. But it hadn't. It only added to her guilt. She thought raising Leona alone would make up for it. But she'd missed the most important truth. When someone loves you, they don't want your sacrifice. They just want you. Seeing her fall silent, Leo stood up. Fine, if you don't want me in her life, I'll stay away. He turned to leave. Wait, Charlotte stood too, grabbing his wrist. Leo stopped, waiting. Her voice broke. I don't hate you. The moment the words left her lips, she regretted them. That wasn't what she meant to say. Leo gave a small nod, gently pulled his wrist from her grasp, and walked out of the coffee shop without looking back. Charlotte collapsed into the booth, hand flying to her mouth as sobs overtook her. That afternoon, Charlotte waited outside the preschool. Leona saw her and ran up, crashing into her legs. Charlotte seemed distant, lost in thought only, snapping out of it when Leona tugged her hand. Mummy, what's wrong? Nothing, sweetie. Charlotte helped remove her backpack. Her voice distracted. The car ride home was quiet. Mummy, Leona piped up. Yes, Leona. The little girl looked up at her with those big, knowing eyes. Are you sad, Mummy? Charlotte was caught off guard. She hadn't realized her daughter could sense so much. She forced a smile. No, of course not. She stroked Leona's hair. Leona shook her head. Did you go see Daddy today? Maria, driving, froze. Daddy's in another country, sweetie, Charlotte said gently. Then how come Mummy go see him? Charlotte gave a weak laugh. But Grandma said, when Mummy is sad, it's because she's thinking about Daddy. Charlotte's breath hitched. For 5 years, she'd lived in regret and longing. She thought time would heal her, but even her daughter saw the truth. She still loved him. She always had. That day in Miami, seeing him with a pregnant woman, her heart shattered. At the airport, when he said she was just a friend, she felt relieved, and today she pushed him away. She realized now, her biggest mistake wasn't the lie that started their marriage. It was the 5 years she spent pushing him further and further away. Mommy's not sad, she whispered, even as tears slipped down her cheek. Leona reached up, wiping a tear away with her tiny hand. Don't cry, Mommy. Charlotte grabbed a tissue, blinking rapidly. Okay, Mummy is not crying, Mummy. Yes, Leona, if Daddy won't come find us, can we go find him? The question hit Charlotte like a bolt of lightning. She hugged her daughter tightly. Okay, she whispered. Mommy will take Leona to find Daddy. That night, Leona was tucked into bed, eyes sparkling with hope. Mommy, when are you gonna take me to find Daddy? Charlotte had no idea. The fight at the coffee shop still haunted her. Leo probably thought she was unstable, heartless, cold. Leona, sleep now. Okay, Mommy will call Daddy tomorrow. It's too late tonight. Daddy's probably sleeping. Okay, the little girl said, closing her eyes. Good night, Mommy. Good night, Leona. Charlotte closed the door and sank onto the living room sofa. She picked up her phone and stared at the name, Leo Anderson. Her thumb hovered over the call button. Then, with a sigh, she pressed the power button instead. The screen went black. It was only 9:26 p.m. He was probably awake. But what if he wasn't? What if he didn't pick up? What if he didn't want to be a father anymore? She couldn't do it. The next morning, Charlotte dropped Leona off at school. Before getting out of the car, Leona asked again, Mummy, when are you gonna call Daddy? Charlotte stroked her head. As soon as Daddy wakes up. Leona nodded. Oh, is Daddy still sleeping? Yes. Charlotte smiled faintly. Daddy's such a sleepyhead. The car pulled up to the curb. We're here. You go on to school, okay? Leona hopped out, then turned back. Mummy, yes, sweetie. When I get home from school, can I talk to Daddy too? Charlotte knelt beside her, cupping her daughter's face. Of course, but you have to be a good girl at school, okay? Leona beamed. Okay. Charlotte watched her skip away, then climbed back into the car. Back at her office, she picked up her phone again and stared at his name, just like last night. And once again, she couldn't press call. The phone screen lit up, then went dark again and again, but she just couldn't bring herself to make the call. Finally, Charlotte took a deep breath, her finger inching slowly toward the dial button. Just as it was about to touch the screen, knock, knock, knock. The fragile thread of her resolve snapped. She put her phone down and called out, come in. An employee stepped in, holding a file. Ms. Shun, here are this month's financial reports. Thank you, Charlotte said, taking the folder from their hands. Once the employee left, Charlotte let out a long, tired sigh. The momentum was gone. She set the reports aside and picked up her phone again, but the courage had vanished. She couldn't believe it. She could sign off on $100 million deals without batting an eye, but she couldn't find the nerve to call Leo. The afternoon dragged on, and she was still no closer to making the call. When Maria brought Leona back from preschool, the phone was still untouched. Leona burst into the office, her little backpack bouncing behind her. Charlotte sat at her desk, lost in thought. Seeing her daughter brought a flicker of joy, but it couldn't dispel the gloom. Mommy. Leona threw herself into her mother's arms. Was my Leona a good girl today? Charlotte asked. I was the best. That's my girl. Charlotte playfully squeezed her daughter's cheeks. Leona wriggled free and looked up at her mother with expectant eyes. Did you call Daddy? Charlotte froze and spun another lie. Daddy was in a meeting, sweetie. He didn't pick up. When will his meeting be over? I want to call him too. Mummy will try again later tonight. That evening, Leona's anticipation was as high as ever, but Charlotte, still not ready, could only put her off again and again. That as the night deepened, she tucked her daughter into bed, tidied up, and went to take a shower. She left her phone on the coffee table, asked if waiting for something. A few minutes later, a small figure in a pink nightgown crept out of the bedroom. Her eyes landed on the phone. Leona tiptoed to the coffee table, unlocked the phone, and went straight to the contacts. She had asked Maria earlier how to spell her father's name. Now she scrolled through the list. Searching a moment later, she found it. Leo Anderson. Without a second of hesitation, driven by a longing she didn't fully understand, she pressed the call button. The phone was answered almost immediately. Hello. Leo's deep voice came through the speaker. What is it? Leona clutched the phone tightly, swallowing nervously. Hello, who is this? She whispered. Leo paused, surprised by the child's voice. Who is this? He asked again. It's Leona. Who's Leona? He asked once more. The little girl, not understanding the question, replied with perfect innocence. Leona is Leona. This time Leo seemed to understand. He tried a different question. Leona, what's your full name? My name is Leona Shun. Hearing the name, Leo fell silent. Leona, he couldn't help but wonder why Charlotte would give their child that name while pushing him away after a long pause. His voice trembled slightly. Where's your mummy? Leona glanced at the bathroom door where the light was still on. Mummy's in the shower. I'm calling you a secret. Does Leona know who I am? You're my daddy, the little girl said without hesitation. That's right. Leona is so smart. Leo laughed softly. Daddy? Yes, Leona. When are you coming home? I miss you. All the other kids have daddies. Tears welled in Leo's eyes. He listened, heart cracking, as the most innocent voice in the world expressed the deepest wish. Leona, where are you right now? His voice was hoarse with emotion. I'm at home, at Mommy's house. Just as Leona was about to say more, a hand still slightly damp took the phone from her. The sound of the shower had stopped. Charlotte was standing right behind her. Leona, who are you talking to? Charlotte looked down at the phone screen and froze. The name Leo Anderson stared back at her. The little girl looked up, her eyes shining. Mummy, I'm talking to Daddy. On the other end of the line, Leo, hearing the exchange, said nothing. Charlotte looked from the phone to her daughter. The first step had been taken. She knew she couldn't hesitate any longer. Leona, you go back to bed, okay? Mommy needs to talk to Daddy for a minute, okay? The disappointment in the little girl's eyes was hard to miss after tucking her back in. Charlotte picked up the phone again. The call was still connected. Hello, I'm here. After Leo spoke, silence settled between them. Charlotte began, her voice faltering. Why? Leo spoke first. Why that name? Charlotte's heart tightened. Guess. Why had she chosen that name? Leona, when her daughter was born, she had agonized over names, poring over books and lists, but on the day she had to register the birth, she looked down at the baby in her arms. All she could see was Leo's face. She threw out every name she had prepared and, on the spot, chose Leona. Sometimes, silence is an answer in itself. After a long pause, Leo spoke again. I have one more question. Charlotte quickly wiped the tears from her cheeks, her voice strained. What is it? Why did you divorce me? Leo asked the question that had haunted him for 5 years. The question was a knife to her heart because I was afraid. Her voice was barely a whisper. I was afraid you'd find out I only married you to secure my position as CEO. Afraid you'd hate me when you found out the truth. And even more afraid. Afraid of what? I was afraid you would forgive me, she confessed, her voice breaking into sobs, because then, I would have hated myself even more. Leo was quiet. To anyone else, it might have sounded irrational, but he knew Charlotte. He knew how much she cared about others' feelings. He never imagined it would become such a burden to her. Do you love me? He asked suddenly. Did she love him? Of course she did. She wouldn't have named their daughter Leona. She wouldn't have kept the baby after the divorce. And she wouldn't have chosen him out of all the men in the world to marry in the first place. Yes. Leo cleared his throat. Then, Charlotte Shun, will you marry me? Charlotte was so surprised by the absurd question that she laughed through her tears. Who proposes over the phone? Then I'll come to your office tomorrow. Okay, all right. Get some rest tonight. Don't stay up late. Okay, good night. A few weeks later, at a preschool parent-teacher conference, the parents were all seated in little chairs while the children played outside. And now, I'd like to welcome Leona Shun's parent to the stage as our parent representative, the teacher announced. Leo stood up, straightened his jacket, and walked to the front with his notes. Good evening, parents and teachers. I'm Leona's father. His voice was warm and confident as he shared his thoughts on parenting and education. When he finished, the room erupted in applause. Outside, a few children immediately crowded around Leona. Was that your dad? Yeah. Leona tilted her chin up proudly. Yes, that's my dad. After school, Leo drove to the Shun Group headquarters. Leona skipped into Charlotte's office and leaped into her mother's arms. Mummy, Daddy was so awesome today, was he now? Charlotte squeezed her daughter's cheeks, then looked Up at Leo, he walked behind her chair and naturally began to massage her shoulders. The familiar touch made Charlotte melt into her seat. "When are you getting off?" he asked. "Soon." As dusk settled, bathing the city in warm golden light, Leo drove them home. In the back seat, their daughter's soft, even breathing filled the car. At a red light, Charlotte turned to him. "Honey, yeah, let's have another baby." Outside, the city traffic flowed endlessly. Inside, there was only the quiet warmth of their family. The soft glow of the dashboard lit up Leo's face, catching the immense surprise and overwhelming love that flooded his eyes. He turned to her, a slow grin spreading across his face.